Welcome to a slightly disappointing live Seattle Overload reaction to the Seahawks Week 4 L in New Orleans. No, Week 5 L in New
Week
Orleans.
5.
Unfortunately, because they're now 2 and 3, they've lost a shootout after winning one previously, 39-32. The good news is the offense remained good. The bad news is the defense was still bad. And when you when Taysom Hill has 9 carries for 112 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he even has a passing touchdown for 22 yards. When the Seahawks give up, so much yardage, just in general, it is very disappointing. They get Alvin Kamara rushed for over 100 yards. It's the first time a Pete Carroll team's given up 2 100-yard rushes in a single game, which again, not great. The Saints had 438 total yards overall, so not quite as many as the Lions, but still not great. They also went 8 for 14 on third down, above that magic 50% number that the Seahawks are looking for. And really, I mean, we are, again, to repeat for newcomers and also to repeat for the pain, we are fans of defense. And so when the defense doesn't play well, it is especially disappointing for us. But what was so frustrating for me is there's no new kind of information here in terms of like the defense was still bad. They lost the blowout. The offense was still good. They won a blowout. There's nothing new to work with. It's like, I don't want this to become a theme of the entire season. Griff, do you agree with that sentiment, or did something change slightly?
Um, I mean, I think big picture, I agree with it, but I do think that in the details there, off the broadcast, we'll see what the tape shows as always. But I thought there were some developments again on defense, kind of like, after last week, even after watching the tape, we thought, okay, there's some life here, even in the game where they gave up 45 points. That I had the same conclusion off of the game today, at least on the broadcast. So, um, like, yeah, they gave up explosive runs to Kamara. They couldn't defend Taysom Hill. But on the Kamara point, it was pretty similar to the Titans game last year, where they were actually bottling up the super majority of those runs. They just lost control on what led to the explosives, and then you have a difference maker carrying the ball in Kamara, who drives your average way up, and obviously tilts the field and stuff. But I felt like snap to snap, the interior played really well, actually, especially when they were in their main base and nickel calls. So I feel like they're kind of getting their act together fundamental wise and technique wise up front. And then in the run game on third down, Taysom Hill was just a difference maker. He's an elite tackle breaker. And then they were also seeing some formations that they haven't really seen a lot of. And I wonder if they're just not suited to defend that, especially within the specialized calls like their third down packages. But then, like, on a more positive note, the early down pass defense, the Saints were undermanned right now, but like they held Andy Dalton to negative efficiency. So I feel like they are in their main identity, their main selection of calls that they call in early downs. I feel like they're getting their act together a little bit, and that's something to build off of. And then on the third downs where they were really losing, like you said, I'm still excited by a lot of what they're doing, and I just feel like that's just, they need more reps, more time with it, more Ryan Neal, even though he can't really cover guys one-on-one too long. I feel like they're going to hammer out their third down package, but I don't know. I feel like I feel like they're putting out fires finally.
The thing you said about formations before I bring Ty in is very astute, because Pete Carroll said in his press conference that the heavy formation thing they only expected to see like once, and then obviously it worked. The Saints started spamming it a bit more, and what I was surprised at was Seattle didn't respond with a personnel grouping that placed an extra D lineman on the field. Like, they didn't come out in like a 6-2 or like 6-1 package. They just stayed in like base bear, which and to me it's unforgivable. And it's not just me who thinks it's like the Seahawks defenders are describing is unacceptable. That, like, you have 3 wide receivers out. You have your starting quarterback out. Taysom Hill, as Ryan Neal himself said in his post-game presser, Taysom Hill is a main threat. When he has the ball, he's going to get the ball, like when he's in the formation as the quarterback in the Wildcat. How does your Wildcat plan fail like this? And Pete Carroll goes, well, our plan obviously didn't work, did it? So interested to hear his views on the tape. But Ty, I mean, it was pretty bad, right? I'm not sure you can add much.
Yeah, I mean, they're just to cope a little bit. We can't cope a lot, but to cope a little bit, some of these numbers are a little skewed because, again, there is the Michael Dixon going rogue thing, and then the DK fumble, which wasn't a fumble or whatever. We'll talk about that later on. But so that was really great field position on 2 of those drives. Obviously, they still, can and should have stopped them from getting into the end zone, but that does skew things a little bit. But Taysom Hill in 2022, really?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you give up, obviously he had a big part of this, but you give up 235 yards on the ground. The Saints don't have their top 3 receivers for the second half of the game. Did Olave get hurt at the end of the first half?
He was out with a concussion after his touchdown catch, which was it a catch? But
yeah. Well, again, we'll talk about all that. But yeah, they don't have Jarvis Landry. They don't have Michael Thomas. They don't have Olave for the second half of the game, and they don't have Jameis. And it's like, I mean, it just didn't seem like they had anything to really counter the Taysom Hill stuff. And that's weird considering that's that's what's going to be a big part of their whole game plan.
And not to get too schemy in the non-tape podcast, but in the past when Seattle's faced a quarterback like this, as Griff is well aware of and has spoke about in the past as well, I'm talking like a Tim Tebow even, but like with Cam Newton as well, they employed like max fit quarters, like middle field open stuff, which I'm surprised. I mean, we haven't watched the tape, but I'm surprised it didn't seem like they were doing that, and I'm surprised they didn't. And while it is tempting to cope about this, it's also like, the Lions got shut out today by the Patriots, and obviously games in the NFL change each week somewhat, and there is a random element to it, and it's like in a parallel universe, in a different simulation, maybe Seahawks don't give up so many points to the Lions, but also, the Lions are missing all their guys against the Seahawks, and they put up points. And they had, against the Falcons, I was going, well, the Falcons, it was a really bad matchup because they had a mobile quarterback, and they had these 2 crazy. They had a tight end who's amazing, and they had a wide receiver who's a unicorn as well. And now I'm like, oh, well, the Saints, they have this wildcat quarterback who's really cool, and he can do all this stuff. And it's like, well, how many teams have like unique players? Well, it's the NFL, so every offense basically does. And I guess the theme is. No, there isn't a theme. They're just bad. They are just bad. Now, I think there is improvements happening, and the coverage is encouraging. Also, I'm not sure how sustainable the coverage improvement is because, again, it's up against backup wide receivers. They did play some middle field close, which put people in one-on-ones. Kobe Bryant had one great pass breakup early in the game, and 3rd and 5, I think it was, playing the sticks, and he was unlucky on that Olave play, which we'll get to the officiating. And then Tariq Woolen, another real standout, again, breaking on a comeback for an interception, which looked like it would change the game, almost did, and recovered a fumble as well, and just had a great game. Again, if we'll talk about the officiating, but ticky-tacky holding call on him, it looked like good press to me. I think he had another excellent game, so that's one bright spot on the defense. But overall, Griff, I'm finding it hard to cope.
I'm finding it even easier to cope after that Lions game, personally. And I say that within the within the idea that they were bad this game. It helps a coper to reach the acceptance stage that however good they get this year, it's going to be a long and ugly process. But I really do think they're undergoing that process, though. It's not like we haven't seen them start it yet, where maybe that's how I felt after, one of the earlier games. So I don't know. They're winning blocks up front. Like they won blocks up front until they didn't.
They did that for a bit.
So I feel like we're going to keep seeing more of that, though. And I think that, I think Tariq Woolen covered really well this game. for the most part. Whereas I didn't say that previously, even when he made good plays, he was a little all over the place. And I think Kobe did a little bit better, and they're going to define if they reach their floor. The rookies are going to define their ceiling, just because rookies are such a high variance proposition. But these guys have a lot of potential. And like, Kobe, what made him such a good perimeter corner in college was being able to use the full extent of his smarts to inform how to play things, to kind of mitigate whatever natural athletic disadvantages he has, which are fairly marginal. They're not like ginormous ones. Maddie, as you know, the slot is just such a different world. As he builds up the experience there and knows how to read certain things, read releases, read things at the break, put it all together within the, the down and distance and personnel call and formations, tendencies, etc. I think he's going to be a really good player there. I just don't know how long that's going to take. I feel like Tariq Woolen is improving every week. So on the flip side of it, though, you've got, they're still cycling in Mike Jackson. Sidney Jones was a healthy scratch. I don't even know if Artie Burns played or not. Curious to see what happens there, but they're still doing their preseason dress rehearsals at left corner.
Artie
right now.
Played a little bit, by the way.
Did he? Okay,
Yeah.
That's good info. So like they're still. It wasn't last year until week 6 when I think Trey Brown actually got in there and started. And granted, he was good right away. So, I don't know if they're going to get a guy between now and week 8 who is as good as Trey Brown was and as good as Sidney Jones eventually was. I don't know if that's going to happen, but they just need to square away like their technically starting 5 on the back end. It's like they gave Ryan Neal the start today after Josh Jones had the much better game than Ryan Neal last week, right? But I still get the idea behind getting Neal in there, because you're saying, well, just let him break in a little bit, because he was a decent player down the stretch last year himself. So they need to straighten out personnel on the back end, and then I think they just need to keep stacking bricks up front and in the middle. I thought the linebackers mostly played fine. Again, broadcast only. I really feel like that we're seeing at least the schematic issues are being smoothed out. Maddie, I sense you disagree. They had a couple, like Jordan Brooks had a bad missed block. There was the draw play where Cody got caught in a bad situation and empty, but it's empty. You're not going to face another quarterback who will carry a quarterback draw up the middle on 3rd and 8 anymore. You're not going to see that again. So I saw them firing off their keys and getting their fits right for 80% of it. The explosive runs really weren't. It was stuff like on the perimeter, the C, D, and E gaps. Like,
yeah, and Conde Diggs, he owned up to not missing the tackle on the Taysom Hill 60-yard touchdown run, which was one of those where the free safety does have to fit in a bit to help out, especially with Wildcat, right? I don't know. I need to watch the tape, but
yeah, and
I think the linebackers are struggling. I think they're I think they're still overplaying things. I actually thought Brooks had a game of thumping hits and was whacking people. He's clearly playing hard. The whole defense is playing hard. They're trying to hit people and they're trying to fly to the ball and make plays. It's just disappointing. The Ryan Neal thing as well, Griff, is maybe not the most reliable witness, but he said in this post-game presser that he alerted Woolen to the comeback based off the formation, and that's how Woolen made that pick, because the comeback's a very difficult route to intercept, especially from bail technique, where you got your butt to the sideline and then you're breaking basically to your blind spot after being over the top. So what's making it harder for me to cope is how good the offense is playing. Now, we expected the offense to be this good, but no, we expected the offense to be good.
Hold on now.
I'm not sure. Well, I think
Maddie
this
with
was
revisionist history here.
yeah. Unless you've listened to all the podcasts, which you may have done, and we appreciate.
I specifically predicted Geno Smith to be the 4th most efficient quarterback in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I published my MVP Geno video before this game. So
all right.
Maddie, not MVP Geno, MV Geno.
Thank
Which,
you.
by the way,
Stay
that
on the
movement
party
is
line.
still on the way up.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that.
Yeah, I'll catch on.
Okay,
Like,
right,
maybe
you
register
did-
the trademark.
Yeah. You did also put Geno Smith and Tom Brady in the same sentence at one point, I think back in August.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Did it on Twitter today as well. Said I said the New Orleans Saints cause issues for Tom Brady, and so Geno might face similar challenges because obviously they're the same player. Geno did not though. He had a really good game. Now the one minor detail which I'm interested in looking at in our tape podcast specifically as well is why the Seahawks went 1 for 9 on third down. I think a lot of that is penalties in the second half. I think some of that's probably why did they start just drop back passing in third and short, and where was the boot stuff? And then I think some of that is just the Saints are pretty sticky in coverage.
And the drops, 2 drops.
Oh yeah, 2 drops. There you go. That's nice and succinct.
So you're entering the variance world of third downs.
Yes.
You can do the right thing, you can do the wrong thing, and have good or bad results. It's just third downs.
But overall, 396 total yards on offense. Geno 16 for 25, 268 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Could have been 4. We will get to the officiating. But the sad news, Rashad Penny fractures his tibia per Ian Rappaport. Pete Carroll described him as shattered, I think it was. And that's obviously very sad for someone who's dealt with a lot already in his NFL career. He'd come back. He looked in an amazing place, been very candid in his press conferences about the challenge mental health-wise of injury and feeling like a disappointment and letting the team down. And just one, hopefully he's okay as a person. And 2, I'm sure he will be back that just sucks, Ty.
Yeah, absolutely sick about that one. Like just the way that he wasn't able to even, move over to the bench. He was dragging himself back onto the sideline. Like that was really sad to watch. And it really sucks because he was also having a really good game. He's been really solid this year. He's been a big part of the run game and the success that they've had, especially as of late. And they were doing some really cool stuff with him today. And so, it's just, you got to feel for him, especially, he's going to be hitting free agency after this year. And so, hope for the best for him, personally speaking, just from a mental standpoint and all that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, agreed.
To lighten the mood from that in the brutal way that NFL football is next man up, rookie Kenneth Walker actually got played more like a running back rather than getting gadget plays. And lo and behold, he can run the football a bit.
He's him.
Yeah.
He's him.
You can tell he's going to have to, like, he's still not there yet in terms of like feeling out like the cutback on outside zone. Like he's almost hitting the whole the line of scrimmage a little too fast relative to how he tries to slow himself down to try to sift through the blocks, like feeling out, like bending back and stuff, because he stumbles a little bit. And I feel like that's just a combination of trying to put his reads and his athleticism together. And like that's the thing that Penny struggled with right early on, like because he even when we would see a little bit of him in his first 2 seasons, he would still get the explosive runs, but it was the feeling it out in between the tackles to try to get the most out of those those median runs, like those 2 to 4 or 5 yarders. I feel like and Walker will get there because he was excellent at that at college, better than Penny was in college at that. But I feel like it's just kind of an NFL speed thing. And maybe with more reps, he'll get there in a hurry. I don't know, but it's great that like if the blocking is there for it, he will take it to the house, So and good backside blocking from Phil Haynes, I think when he subbed in, and Abraham Lucas.
Yeah, that Haynes subbing in thing's worth mentioning. Actually, people wondered if Gabe Jackson had hurt himself, but no, just a little competition thing, and honestly deserved.
Oh, really?
Jackson's
he had a hip flexor. I thought they announced that he had a hip flexor.
Pete Carroll described it as rest.
Oh,
interesting. Maybe Pete doesn't actually have the full story on that.
Perhaps.
I don't know.
Maybe. By the way, a quick note here. This comes from Field Goals. The Seahawks now are on 8 consecutive seasons with at least one of their running backs suffering a season-ending injury.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I wonder how
sucks.
common that is league wide. I mean, that sounds
Yeah.
brutal, but like for the
Yeah.
Seahawks, luck wise. But I
Yeah.
mean, running back is a really tough position,
It
obviously.
is. Yeah. You
And
take a beating.
so, Ty, how good was Gino?
Very good. I mean, there was obviously like a couple of things here and there that, we can talk about, and that we can talk about more on the tape show, but some of the throws that he made today, disgusting. Like literally disgusting. Like the one to Lockett on the touchdown, the one to Fant when he was rolling to his left on the bootleg, like he was making some big boy throws today. And that's the thing too, is like we continue to see him kind of progress, right? He was going off script. He was legitimately making plays outside of the pocket, and I mean, he's showing you something new every single week. And that's the thing that's really exciting for me with him. And it's just, he's doing it in different ways. And that makes me excited about their ability to sustain this over the course of a full season. It's just, there's more new stuff getting introduced here. And he's just kind of fleshing out his ability in general. So, I mean, again, like the efficiency wasn't as there as it has been in the past few weeks. I think he went like 16. He went 16 to 25 as we have here on the graphic. But still, I mean, like some of the plays that he was able to make against a really good defense too, with with legit difference makers at all three levels in the defense, and a really solid secondary as well. Like this was, to me, and we'll see what the tape looks like and everything, but this to me was maybe his most impressive performance thus far, just considering the opponent and considering some of the throws that he had to make. How did you guys feel?
Yeah. I agree. Like the Saints are a real defense, and this is further proof that this offense can get explosive, and they can do it in different ways. They can do it play action and drop back. So like that straight up, just I think that puts to rest any concern. That doesn't mean that they won't have games where they can't get explosive, but we just know it's on their tool belt right now. And then he was accurate elsewhere. Like even the incompletions that weren't drops, like those were just really tightly contested. I mean, the Saints have DBs; they can cover across the field, and you like we said earlier, you run the simulation enough on some of those, and some of those get caught, and some of them get knocked away, right? But he was just making plays. The dropped touchdown from DK, like that was just, he lasered that. I think he threw it too hot for him, actually.
Yeah, that was a ridiculous throw, though.
It was a ridiculous throw. The Saints, like they didn't have a great pass rush coming in, at least results wise, but they have players there.
Yeah, and on that 3rd and 2 sack, you saw Lucas get beat by Jordan, where it's like, that's a player.
Yeah.
And right. But it shows that he can still manage in perfect pockets and get the ball out, and be able to get the ball out and still get downfield. That just means that he's balancing everything. He can balance the pass rush, he can balance the play call, he can balance what he needs to do. Now, again, he did take 3 sacks. Some of them where he's really trying to make something happen, but he's trying to make something happen within the bounds of like what is not doing too much, you could say. Like then the structure dies on him, and then like, okay, now it's time to maybe get rid of the ball. I'm curious to see if he missed something obvious, though. On one of them where he steps up in the pocket, I think to take off, he actually had DK coming up on the post or on the deep dig, but I don't know if that throw could have gotten out of his hand in rhythm and on time, given to what he had to do in the pocket. So maybe, when we roll the tape back and we pause and play enough times, we'll be able to say, whether he could or couldn't have. But like, I don't know, the dude's on it right now. And the fact that he can show up like this against a good defense, it really makes you want another crack at the 49ers just to see how they measure up again. Not because I think
I have
they
good
can
news.
take to them.
I have good
but
news.
I think, yeah,
they do get another crack at them.
Oh, yay. Because I want to see, like, I'm not saying that they'll take it to them and put all these points up on them, but I want to see, like, to measure the progress with them being, the control and the experiment facing the same defense, right?
And what happens when you keep the ball in Geno's hands near the goal line instead of getting really cute with it?
Yeah.
So I agree with what you're saying about the pocket stuff, and I am also curious about the sacks. I think the only one I had a slight issue with, I don't even know if it was just no, I think it was a sack, was the 3rd and 2 with the towards the end of the game where he starts running around trying to make stuff happen, takes a big loss, and they have to punt it back. Where if you just throw that away and then it's 4th and 2, then we just go for it. But then would they even have gone for it? I'm not so sure. To me, it didn't seem like anything was open, and I thought the broadcast did a great job of actually getting all 22 up to show stuff wasn't open. And I think if it had been open, they'd have said, this was open. And I forget the color commentator, but he was Geno pilled.
Matt Millen.
Matt Millen was Geno pilled.
We witnessed somebody swallowing the Geno pill live on air.
I was like, when the game started and he was talking about Geno, I was like, does he listen to the Seattle Overload podcast? Like, what's going on here?
I think he's had a little tune in,
little taste of the Seattle Overload podcast. Hi Matt.
Yeah, hi Mr. Millen. It's 5 weeks. I think we have a large enough sample size to say that what Geno's doing projects forward. Like Ty, you were saying, like they did new developments every week. It happens in different ways. His process is innate right now, and how defenses, how they defend him differently, whatever, he'll go where the ball needs to go, and he can attack you at the point of attack, not like up front necessarily, but like the schematic points downfield. I mean, he can right now, he can beat good defenses at what they're trying to do, and he can beat them where they are, and he can beat them where they're not, is what I'm saying essentially. And like he can find a way to do it, and like you can tell that he is also improving. Him, like going back to the pocket thing, he can tap into his arm strength reservoir when the pocket's changing up on him a little bit. He's finding ways to establish his base because, like we said, like he's not a guy that can generate torque when his entire body isn't lined up, like Russell Wilson can, or a lot of these other guys can, where their feet aren't set and they can just, they can just whip it. He doesn't have that, but he's finding ways to tap into it. Like he kind of does that. He did it a lot at West Virginia. We're starting to see a little bit more where I don't know if it's a rhythm thing, but he kind of hunches a little bit. It's like he coils up and then he rips it. And I think he does that in part to get the rhythm and timing of the throw down, just like a hesitation thing. But also I think it lets him load.
You can explode out of that. And
that's how he can do that without, when his throwing base isn't distributed precisely how he normally wants to. Like when we see him step into a throw, some of these throws he's making is not stepping into it, but you see him do that hunch a little bit. And it's like, it reminded me of when I went back like a crazy person and watched him from West Virginia about 12 years ago. I'm like, oh, that looks familiar. And that's why he's doing it. When he throws those deep posts at West Virginia, it's a huge hunch. He looks like Draymond Green about to shoot a 3-pointer. I like he's wearing a backpack. But in this case, it helps him be a better player because he just launched that shit to Tyler Lockett 50 yards downfield twice. So I don't know. He's adapting. He's adapting. Defenses are adapting to him, and he's adapting to them, adapting to him. So DK catches a couple more balls, man. Like this team can make up for, a 14-point swing from the refs.
On the red zone, like compilation of all the touchdown throws at the end of red zone, which they do. I like, they showed a great end zone angle of his shot to Lockett, where he's hanging in the pocket and like he gets hit like when he steps up into it. Like again, talking of working in the pocket, he's not afraid. He's diming out there, and that second play action throw to Lockett was perfect, like into 2-man. Like the accuracy on that, Lockett did great as well. But we got
to talk about Lockett.
Tyler Lockett's, dude, his route on the first touchdown at the end of the half, like equally as disgusting as the throw.
He was 5 catches for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, 20.8 yards per catch. and a long of 40.
Full Tyler Lockett route tree being unleashed this year. That's
There you
pretty
go.
cool.
There you go.
The dude's on pace for 1,300 yards right now.
And CeeLo the God mentions in the chat, and if you are in the chat, please do like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't. CeeLo the God mentions that throw to Noah on the left sideline was money. It was quite early
on the run,
and I was like, where is the bootlegs? And then they boot him away, rolling to his left, and he lofts it perfectly. And again, you got like a nice end zone angle of that, or behind the play angle, and that was just inch perfect. And one of those where, you know, there's all this talk in the offseason from certain people at Seahawks training camp where it's like, oh, Drew Lock's so much better throwing on the move. Like, Gino can't do it. And it's like, okay, you don't know what you're watching. Anyway, before we get to the officiating, really the theme of this game is the Seahawks made too many mistakes, even for this offense to overcome. Now, we've spoke about defense, but they also had 12 penalties for 85 yards. 8, if my maths is correct. Yeah, 8 of those. No. What's 12 minus 3? 9. 9 of those arriving in the second half, which ain't very good. And I think that was noticeable. Like, the second half just felt messy and ill-disciplined on both sides of the football. It is 1:45 here. It's 1:45 a.m. So just relax with the maths or math slander. Ty, though, that fake punt, which wasn't meant to be a fake punt, Pete Carroll said it was a rollout, like rugby-style punt, and Dixon saw like a bit of color and got spooked and then just started trying to run, or maybe saw some space. It's not very clear as my light starts flashing. That was weird, right?
Yeah, he went rogue. And I have no idea what the heck, because like he had space to punt the ball away. Like it wasn't like he had guys in his face. Like he did have space. It was just like, yeah, there was kind of a hole there. But you're also Michael Dixon. You're a punter. That hole is going to close quickly on you, my friend. And so it did. That was, I don't mean to get too negative or insulting on this show. You know, we want to try to keep it nice on here, but that was pretty dumb. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
I think he thought it was getting blocked, but Griff, how did you view it?
Yeah, I think it was because they've done the rugby style run and punt thing before, but I think he thought he had an opening, and it was like, oh shit. The other thing is Pete could be saying that, and it might actually be a punt run option based on blocking, based on front and blocking. Look, and Pete's not going to say, well, he had an option to run. Why would he say that? Because if they need to do it again in the future, he's not going to say that and tip his hands. So
that would be such a weird place to, like, not even just like like where they were on the field, but also just the point in time in the game to do that.
Agree.
That's such a weird time.
That's why I suspect that it was just the regular rugby run and punt.
Yeah.
At least I hope so. Other than,
you hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. Listen, it's easy to cope because if the defense just gets its shit together a little bit, this team can totally challenge for a wild card.
Yeah.
So
they can. Yeah, they just need, like, the offense is good enough to mask some of the deficiencies of the defense. It's just they need to get better on the margins defensively. Because, like, again, right? Like, they don't, like, all right, again, you know, if they don't have the fumble and the weird fake punt or whatever, Saints only scored 25 points potentially in this game.
Right.
You know, and so we're talking about a whole different game. So, like, they're really close, even with all the issues that they have. They're really close to being 4-1 right now.
Right.
Like, and that's the thing that makes it so aggravating too.
Right. And like, this loss is really bad because you can't get a loss back. But the way they lost it, I really don't believe it stops them from, I mean, they could have won or lost this game, and their chances of making the incremental improvements they need to make to be competitive in any given game moving forward changes. Like, they're straight up, so like they're literally the 30th or 31st worst defense right now. in order for this to be a competitive team, we're talking about them only needing to be nothing better than the 20th worst defense. Like they need to improve to 20th worst defense. And then once you get there, then you can talk about, oh man, there's a chance that they could actually be better than that. But I'm not talking about that right now. I'm saying be the 20th worst defense, not the literal worst or second worst in the league. And I think this is a game that shows that there are signs of life that they can improve to that point. Still bad, absolutely, but not, the worst thing I've ever seen. Like to tie further to your point, this isn't to undo what we saw. This is about what it means, about what they can be moving forward. Potentially 25 points. And then from there, what got a lot of those points were third down fiascos, where they're in calls where, not ideal for what happened. And then one guy has a breakdown. And then, that's how what happens against.
There was also that
like
3rd and 5
Hill,
where they had the encroachment or whatever.
Right. Right.
And I think they scored on that drive, right?
So in that vein, we're talking about an early down defense that did its job perhaps to maybe have only given up 20-ish points this game, if they normalize on third downs. Now, they straight up played poorly on third downs. I'm not saying I don't subscribe to third downs are random. I think you can be good at third downs. I also think you can be bad at third downs, and it's not just randomness.
They seem good at the passing third downs. It's when they go in and run like third and shorts where Taysom Hill. Like I don't know why the Saints didn't use Hill more. Like Seattle could not stop him throughout the game. When Hill wasn't on the field, I was like, "Oh, thank you very much."
I think part of that was that they actually thought Andy Dalton and their backup receivers would win the day against Seattle's so far horrid secondary. I think they just straight up were like, "Oh, we can beat these guys."
So. But the other factor here
on that count.
No, true. The other factor here is the officiating. Now, I still think Seattle had even with everything that happened, and I think officiating is a cycle, really. I still think Seattle had enough opportunities to win this game. They lost this game regardless of the officiating, but then Tyler Lockett, perhaps frustrated, he says to Greg Bell of the News Tribune in the locker room afterwards, "Man, it was so hard for us to even get a flag for us in that game. It was ridiculous for the Saints. They got all the calls, so they were lucky. But we just can't put these games in the refs' hands." Which, agree with that last point. Now, if we break... Griff?
I was just going to... I was genuinely impressed by the gall of these refs to call that a touchdown in the same drive that they also called that fumble a fumble. I was like, oh wow. I was impressed. I was like, okay.
Well, for me, the issue as well is
living your truth.
Right. For me, the issue is like, you overturn the touchdown, right? It's called an incompletion on the field. They then go into the review, and I mean, I actually thought he did get 2 steps, and it was a football move, right? They go into the review, and the review works as designed, in my opinion, and they call that a touchdown, right? But the fumble, like either his arm is down, which it looked like, right?
Yeah.
Or the ball's bobbling. I think they blew that call. I think they blew that call. Ty?
Yeah, same, exactly. What is going on there? You having a rave? You raving over there? You need some glow sticks?
No,
it's 3 a.m. Maddie's got a disco ball.
He's got a disco ball.
He's
getting a little
for a wild Monday.
He's got a disco ball and a snuggie.
Ty, did they blow the call? Weird.
Yes, they blew the call. They blew the call because I'm mad and I'm a Seahawks fan. No, but seriously, I mean, to your point, right? Like, it should have either been an incompletion or he should have been down by contact. It could not be. There is no third option there. There is. No
I don't know how they got from that to fumble and saw enough to overturn.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know about you guys, but did you guys see Kandata's tweet, like where he was like, "Oh yeah, the Seahawks are going to keep the ball or whatever," and then you're like, "Cool," and then right before the broadcast comes on, Greg Bell is like, "Saints ball."
Well, the reason that was because they saw, as Pete said in his presser afterwards, they saw DK's arm down, like before the ball's coming.
Yeah, his forearm's
Wow,
down.
so-
His forearm's down. And that counts, right? It doesn't have to be the elbow. They were saying on the broadcast, like, oh, you got to wait for his elbow to go down. No, it's the forearm. Like, the forearm was down. Like, his wrist and, like, the start of his forearm was down before the ball starts moving.
And so the other big call is the negation of Geno Smith's touchdown, where he rolls left, he buys time, it's really good, and he finds DK on another kind of improvised deal, wide open for the touchdown, and then the flag comes in hella late. Like you're like touchdown, you're like, wow, that's good. And you're like, oh, there's a really late flag here. What could this be? And then you watch the broadcast and you're like, oh, okay, here's Charles Cross handling a stunt really nicely. Here's Charles Cross blocking inside his frame. Oh, here's the defender flopping, as Pete Carroll described it.
Now, see, vibes wise, you can't call that. I don't care.
What on earth is that?
Yeah.
Just think about how many people
knew they were calling it too. Sorry, Griff. You
no, I was just gonna say, think about how many people you're upsetting sitting at home at their couch by making that call. I'm especially sour by it because how many holding calls went uncalled against the Broncos week 1 and the 49ers, I think.
Even the Saints this game, like that was going on. So
yeah.
To call that on a touchdown where you haven't called it the whole game.
I feel like from the league offices though, because they do emphasis calls and I'm sure that they like drill that, not literally drill it, but in like league meetings and stuff with the officiating crews and stuff, like, oh, this is a big thing that happens, rollouts to the left or right, we get a lot of holding for the tackles here, you got to watch for that. And I just felt like this was, when all you have is a hammer type of situation, every scramble looks like a nail or whatever, whatever metaphor you want to use. That was pretty smooth for me, actually. Anyway, yeah, fuck all that. Pardon my language. The offense
You're not
is
excused.
Good. No, that's unacceptable.
The offense is good, and that matters moving forward. So the Seahawks formula right now, the pitch is they're a top 7 offense. I think that's what they're trying to be here. They can be a. Maddie's not taking kind of my proclamations.
Maddie disagrees with you. Like, has disagreed with you more than I think I've ever seen him disagree with you.
The pitch here is they have the potential they have the capability to be a top 7 offense right now. Probably top 10 is probably a little bit safer. But say they're like the 7th, 8th best offense, and they need to get to the 20th best or 10th, 12th worst defense, I suppose, and then reevaluate and see what that adds up to. Can they string together 5 games with that kind of efficiency on both sides of the ball, and do they win most of those games? That's what they need to be, because they're only 2-3. They should be 3-2, but they're 2-3. They can easily, go 3-2 over the next 5, and then they're probably in the wild card discussion with the way the NFC is right now.
The Rams are 2-3.
They still might be in the division conversation,
right?
At that point.
Right.
Rams are 2-3.
At 5-5, 5-5, 6-6, this team's probably in it at that moment in time. So that's where I'm at with it.
And by the way, the 49ers lost Jimmy Ward. They lost who else did they lose?
Got hurt.
Yeah, they lost Mosley. And that's an ACL, so he's done for the year.
Damn.
And
injuries suck, man.
And then Bosa has a groin thing. So even though that they won today, they took quite a few L's as well, injury-wise.
Yeah.
So whole division's beat up right now. It's all going through, like, they're all going through their individual issues.
Marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, we'll be back Wednesday, me and Ty, or Thursday if you listen, with our news/press conference recap of everything Seahawks and a bit more reading in between the lines of what Pete Carroll says, what other players say once they've watched the tape. And then Griffin and I and Ty will have watched the tape, and we'll come back Thursday or Friday if you listen with our all 22 analysis to explore what exactly went wrong with the defense and what went well with the offense. At least we've got one thing to look forward to. Until then, please do like this video. Follow everyone on Twitter at CMike Spin Move for Griff, at Dane GNZLZ, and then me at Matty F. Brown. Follow the Twitter for Seattle Overload at Seattle Overload. We're trying to maintain a regular schedule, but we do tweet out on there when we're going live and other news which may interest you. And until next time, subscribe to us, 5-star reviews on your podcast app, and we appreciate you.
Thanks,
Go
guys.
Mariners as
And
well.
Goms.
Yeah, we've got the Mariners, guys.
Yes.
Yeah.